power is not a first world problem. It'll send you into third world issues in a hurry if you're not prepared. We have our own septic system and well. We can't rely on the local water company to get us water when the power's out. Those are challenges that, we were prepared for, but those are things that people need to think about if they're going to make their urban exodus.
A movement is underway of people abandoning the emotional, physical, and financial expenses of city living and crafting their own purpose, livelihoods, and joy in the rural reaches. The Urban Exodus podcast shares the wisdom, wit, and stories of those who decided to embark on the road less traveled, to pursue their own interpretation of the good life. Small business owners, change makers, artists, farmers, and more, working towards building a better future for themselves and their fellow citizens. This podcast is for country dreamers, rural folk, and urban dwellers alike who want to feel more connected to the natural world and the purpose and choices in their lives. I'm Melissa Hessler. Welcome to the Urban Exodus. I'm excited to invite you to my conversation with David Barron. David is a true Renaissance man. He juggles a busy and fulfilling life as a firefighter, farmer, parent of 4, and community leader in Western Oregon. David grew up in Arkansas and moved to Oregon as a teenager. He and his family grow vegetables, raise animals, keep bees, and make and sell beauty and bath products on their small farmstead. In addition to his heroic work as a lieutenant firefighter in one of the most fire-prone parts of the country, David works as a leader with a youth organization, Word is Bond, a group seeking to heal and reconstruct the narrative between young Black men and law enforcement. David is an inspiring person for so many reasons, but his positivity and love for his work and his community is what makes him so wonderful to listen to. I hope you enjoy. I am really excited to welcome to the show David Barron Light of Crosseyed Cricket Farms in Oregon. And welcome. I have been following your farming journey online for quite some time, and I'm just really excited to hear more about your story and how you got to where you are now. So could you share a little bit of your personal backstory, where you started out and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, I started out in this great state of Arkansas. From Arkansas, my preteen years is where I was born and raised. Then we moved to Oregon out on the West Coast, and I've been here ever since. I'd say we moved to Oregon 1990 is when we moved to Oregon. It's been my home since 1990, and I'm 44 years old. I think that's about it.
What was the transition like moving from Arkansas to Oregon?
Wow, it was a big culture shock for several reasons. I'd say probably the most obvious reason, the city and the state of Arkansas just had more Black people coming to Oregon. That just wasn't the case. So that was the first obvious thing. But then as time goes on, one of the things I realized, the state of Arkansas is really close to Mexico, but I only knew one Mexican growing up in our city. When I moved here, it was quite the opposite. And it took a while for me to kind of make that realization that I really wasn't from a diverse place in Arkansas. It did have more Black people, but that was pretty much it. It may be now, but back then it wasn't. So coming to Oregon definitely gave me a culture shock for a lot of reasons.
For people that maybe aren't familiar with that part of the country, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your particular part of Oregon, kind of the history, the geography, and some of your favorite places to visit and explore.
Yeah, there's so many great places, but people could start about the Great Missoula flood and how that made the topography, well, contributed to the topography and the landscape that we have. So the gorge is probably right up there with my favorite places to be in the state of Oregon. But there's so much of Central Oregon, Eastern Oregon, Southern Oregon. There's so many wonderful places. You probably could go on vacation weekly and, or once a month and not hit all the amazing places that they just opened a new hiking trail from Corvallis to the coast that they have been working on for years. So there's always projects in the works and projects that are planned that are coming online all the time that open up some amazing places.
It is really amazing how dedicated the state is to making wilderness spaces accessible and putting in trail systems.
What is that like in your state?
It is the same, yeah. And I would say that, a lot of kind of states that depend on nature based tourism, it's just a smart bet. I actually have a friend in Oak Ridge, Oregon.
Oak Ridge is beautiful.
It's so beautiful. That was like a old mill town that had fallen on hard times. And the government decided to get together and invest in putting in mountain bike trails. It really started to turn around the economy there.
Coworker of mine, he invested in some real estate there. Yeah, Oak Ridge changed a lot. It was a depressed logging community. I mean, logging is still timber is still a multi-billion-dollar industry in Oregon, Washington, California, of course, Canada, the west coast of Canada. So yeah, to see them make that transition, yeah, and I think they might have like breweries down there, which it wouldn't be the first brewery in Oregon. There's a great book. I don't know the author of it, but it talks about the brewing history in the state of Oregon. And we'll never get to the peak of the way it was back then because every logging town, every fishing camp, and every community had its own brewery. It was some crazy numbers that they mentioned in that book.
It's like history repeating itself with all of the craft breweries that are popping up.
Yeah, Oak Ridge. So have you been there?
I've been there several times. And I went to that brewery and they had live music and, it's just a small town, but it had like a real heartbeat. And it was just interesting because my friend had moved there right as they were starting to kind of put in those trails. And it's a complicated change too, because maybe it's now like priced out for people to buy houses there that live in that community for years. But it's really helped the overall economy.
Double-edged sword, of course.
I would love for you to describe your home, your farm, and, any challenges and benefits about living where you do in Oregon.
I would say that the first year we moved here, there was like an epic flood.
Not a good welcome.
Well, it's one thing to have a flood, but I think Melissa at the time was pregnant. It was right around Christmas too when the flood happened. We had to go to the hospital at the high water mark. Our neighbor, he swore to me that if I didn't call him, that he would be really upset with me. He has a bigger truck than I have, and his guts are older and tougher, I would say. Great husband and wife. They called and checked on us every day. By the time it came, the waters had receded, and it came fast, so we didn't call them. They were sore upset with us, but there's great people in the community, great people on our street. But that was one interesting event. I actually have video. When you come here next time to visit Oak Ridge, of course, you're welcome here. But I will try and... I found that video the other day. I was looking through something, and an old neighbor, he had a drone. He just got out of the military, and that was one of his therapies, was droning nature. And he did some amazing stuff all over. But one of them was that flood. It was crazy. I would say last year was the worst year of the no power.
Do you have rolling blackouts there like they have in California?
No, thank God for that. But I'm doing what I can to, if that becomes a problem. That's kind of right, the urban exodus. So that's kind of the issue. Where I'm looking, I think it was just short of 14 days. It might have been 12 days that we didn't have power. So that takes some getting used to. But it also, in my opinion, builds character, and it also lets you know that you're alive and that it's not just the internet. And so that was a little much. I mean, we do have a generator, don't get me wrong. So we had access to power, and thank God for that. We had foresight to have extra gasoline and that type of stuff. So we're prepared. We knew that coming. Here was an option, but last year was the worst. But it varies. Sometimes it's been 3 days, 2 days, 12 hours. That takes some getting used to. So my mind has spent a lot of time on what that might look like in the future, because that's, of course, you should be prepared. Yeah, so those are some of the challenges. The other challenge, I would say that the internet's fine for me. The oldest calls it dollar store internet.
You're like, you didn't even get to live through the da-na-na-na-na-na.
Yeah, no, he has no idea, right? He has no idea because while he's saying that, his younger siblings are all on some type of device using bandwidth, and he still can, do whatever he wants to do. Whereas one of my coworkers who doesn't live very far outside of Portland, I would say it is on the way to Astoria. So that part of Portland, in between. If people don't know, Astoria is like one of the oldest settled communities.
From Goonies.
Well, yeah, Goonies. He hates it. Everybody brings up Goonies because everybody brings up Goonies or Kindergarten Cop.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize Kindergarten Cop was there. That's hilarious.
Oregon has this little famous film history, that being one of them. But his internet, he literally cannot stream Netflix. Him and his wife. He said his daughter, she might be 5 now. She says, bad iPad, Dad. I can't even watch a show. So he's able to make a phone call, but he can't even watch or download if he's researching any of that stuff because it's so bad. And he's that close to Portland. So there are extremes, and I would say he's at a very bad extreme. So we're blessed. I know they're working on out here rural high speed, and that excites him and some of our neighbors. But yeah, that's another challenge. But these are first world problems. I mean, power is not a first world problem. It'll send you into third world issues in a hurry if you're not prepared. Right? We have our own septic system and well. We can't rely on the local water company to get us water when the power's out. Those are challenges that we were prepared for, but those are things that people need to think about if they're going to make their urban exodus.
You mentioned floods, but I am a Northern California girl myself, and water access, especially in farming, even small scale farming, has become such an issue all through the West. And I wondered if where you're based in Oregon, if you have those same fears or anxieties about access to water for your crops or rationing of water.
Well, I have a fear, that maybe Oregon's becoming more like Northern California, not only in people, lots of people moving here from California, but the water. Yeah, it is a concern, but anxiety, no, I have no anxiety. We just have to prepare and keep moving forward. And things here, we're just more concerned in forest management for us and when I say us, just our community. There is obviously, changes could happen, but currently, there's the springs, rivers, and creeks out here in Western Oregon are doing pretty good. Our concern, like I said, is just managing the forest. And I would hear before I moved here, this is an interesting story to hear about deforestation or logging or environmentalism. That is a very abstract, maybe even antiquated for even when we would go hike in the forest before we lived in the forest. You had certain notions, but then, even as a firefighter, you have certain notions, but seeing the devastation of fire and managing timber, you see the benefits, and there is a lot of gray in between that black and white, as far as water and timber and environment. I see a lot of it firsthand.
You also work as a firefighter lieutenant. Oregon has obviously just been devastated by wildfires in recent years. So for people who maybe aren't familiar, can you kind of explain your job and the work that you do?
As far as professionally, structure firefighter, I don't really delve too much in wildland, even though I'm in the wildland and I have some experience. But structural firefighting, medical response is my background, and that's what I've done for the last 20 plus years. That was a dream of mine since I was a little boy. Yeah, it's a great career. I would encourage anybody who's interested in serving to consider that. It's rewarding. An opportunity to serve your community, an opportunity to make a difference daily, and you're able to also see an inner view of like whatever city you may be in. Like when you used to live in Seattle, a coffee shop employee has a certain view of Seattle that a lot of people don't get to see. You know what I mean? A police officer or a post worker. The same goes with the firefighter. And so it's just one of those great careers where you're able to make a difference in someone's life, even if it's one time. What an opportunity.
How did you get into it? And say someone is interested, I feel like firefighting is a job that you can take from a city to a rural area, right? People need first responders.
I remember, I'll give you an example. One of my coworkers, her and her husband moved to Northern California from Oregon, and it wasn't like some super small town, but for our standards, it might have been like 40,000, 60,000 population. Most of what they dealt with was a lot of wildfire. So in that career, you can start, a lot of people start by doing wildland fire because the qualifications are not as rigorous to get into structural firefighting. They're both firefighting, but they are different entry points. So a lot of people will start in wildland firefighting. One of my good friends did that, wildland firefighting, for a long time. I believe he's 47, so he's not done it for a few years, but that's a tough job. Structure is a tough job, but to start, you're going to probably need to understand you're going to have to be 18 years old. You're going to need a driver's license, and it's always good to have medical certification. So you have to look at your state and where you might want to work, or another state where you might want to move to, and see what the qualifications are. And obviously you want to get those qualifications, and it's usually driver's license, 18 years old, paramedic, EMT paramedic, EMT intermediate, and EMT basic are, I think, the national standards. So those are the medical certifications. And then if you are very, very basic, get your American Red Cross first aid CPR card training. And then that's where I started, was getting that. And I did that. I did it in high school. I was a fire explorer. So for anybody that might be, I think it's 14 to 21 or 16 to 21. And that's set up through the police departments and fire departments across the United States, the Explorer program. Yeah, a lot of my friends. You're taking me way back here.
It's nice to look back at where you started and where you've come.
Yeah. So that was where I got my first taste, was the Fire Explorer program. And then from there, like I said, took some college, and you take these civil service exams. And departments now, it's always changing. There's like certain testing companies that do it. And for those that are in that process, they probably will be able to add a little more light. But yeah, that's a basic 411 of how to get started.
Are you still going to these blazes because so many are endangering homes now, or have you not really in your particular area?
Yeah, we have people that volunteer to do that. They've gone to California, of course, and to fires here in Oregon. But I usually just stick to the city. They can go out and do that, and then I'll just work in the city while they're gone. That's kind of my take on it. But the training I love, and one of the things as I transition closer toward retirement is being more involved with my fire department in my community. So that will get me more into the wildland, because that's obviously what's more out here than structural firefighting.
Calling all small and rurally based business owners. Do you love Urban Exodus and want to help support our continued programming? Become a founding partner of the new Urban Exodus shop. You can reach an engaged customer base who believes in supporting farmers, makers, artisans, and small business owners in rural economies. We are looking for culinary delights, home goods, body goods, art, textiles, adornments, more. We just are really interested to see what you're creating and try to help you get it out there to a larger audience. And we're looking for vendors who make quality products, who pay a living wage, and who run sustainably minded operations. And if this sounds like you and your business and you want to learn more, please click the partnerships page on urbanexodus.com. Well, let's segue then to your other job, because you're also a farmer. So I'd love for you to tell us about Crosseyed Cricket Farms, when you started it, what products you make.
Yeah. Okay. So it started long ago, but the name started long ago. Before we made the transition, I was kind of operating that way for a better part of maybe close to 12 years or so. But since we moved here, I would consider it more of a homestead than a farm. Because of my other full-time job, I find that I'm more of a homesteader. So we have egg layers, and we have goats, and we have sheep. And our favorite pets, we have a couple Dobermans. And that's really the nuts and bolts of our homestead. We do raise meat chickens, turkeys sometimes, and sell to family and friends, which leads me into, I was super excited to talk to you about that. The small farm and food part of the network. I found when I moved here, I had not necessarily big dreams, but dreams about like, we could do chickens. And then with the first few years we were here, we not only raised them, we butchered them ourselves. And then my father-in-law and friends one time, and then a coworker built us a chicken plucker. And I think you do that a few years, and we would get into, who does your packaging? Oh yeah, we do our packaging. People were leery. There's something about the system that gives people comfort.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
I'm telling you. And then another thing we learned fast was that not only does that give people comfort, but whole chickens is a bad idea for this generation of parents and maybe even younger, because what are you going to do with a whole chicken? Some people are going to go to YouTube, but we found that people would buy 1 year. Then, oh, we still have the chicken. We're not interested.
That's so true. I mean, we learned how to cook a whole chicken when we moved here because, I don't know, it just slowed us down enough to be like, I don't have to just like throw like a chicken breast into a pan, you know? The time and like the intention changed to a certain degree, but that's not the majority.
Yeah, it's not the majority, and really can't blame people. One, people are busy, and then two, you can't force people to. I'm not necessarily say it's one thing to watch a Netflix documentary. I used to hear this at work all the time. Oh, did you see this such and such, or did you see this such and such? And it's like the old dog has seen so much go by, nothing really raises his head up. I would hear this so much at work, factory farm this or this or that. And then the same people wouldn't make that support for the cattle farmers that we would work with. I would say that a lot of firefighters, whether you're in Vermont, Maine, parts of New York, Florida, Oregon, Washington, California, live on farms. Maybe less percentage as it was the last generation, but still a lot. So we always had guys that were doing cattle, poultry, or whatnot. But what you find is people don't really want to pay full cost for what it takes to raise a turkey, for example. $6 a pound. Oh man, Kroger or Fred Meyer or Safeway had it for $4.99 or 99 cents a pound for the holidays. There's a cost, both sides. So I don't want to get off topic, but that's part of topic is we found a few and add every year maybe one or two people who are looking for farm fresh food that is raised by someone who has a care and a passion to do it and to do it right. And when you're doing this, you're not just supporting me. You're not just supporting the hatchery. Someone has to spend time, money, and effort to hatch the livestock when it comes to poultry, whether they are heritage breeds or not. Then you have some people who have to raise non-GMO or non-GMO organic feed for the livestock. Then the farmer has to raise these to market weight. And you don't want to exclude the butcher. We also, the reason I mentioned about butchering all our chickens and that experience, part of it is also people they like that, the packaging, logos, that type of thing. The butcher that we use, she employs, I believe, 8 people. So there's a whole thing from inception to getting it to your farm to table, your buyer's hands, that they're supporting a lot of people by paying the true cost. And I know that sounds very cliche, but that is just the cold reality that we found, that you don't want to grow it and then have to sell it. You want to sell it and then grow it. And that takes time and experience. Lamb is pretty easy to move. There's lots of people that like lamb. Lots of people like chicken, but they don't want to pay the real cost of raising poultry. So that's been my experience. The eggs, no problem. They also move. But yeah, that's just one of the things that I found in my experience. And then the goat, there are people that I communicate with. I don't have enough goat to supply them. So of course I would like to do more goats, but then we run into two professions. So what I like to do when you say Crosseyed Cricket Farms, one of the things I like to do is focus on seed preservation. So the farming part for me is to grow kale, mustard, collards, and save those seeds. For ourselves, what we like to do, and then we sell the excess strawberries, which we're going to have to replant 3 rows this year of strawberries. They're in their second year, which would be going into their third, so they've got to get moved out. We did 80 feet of raspberries, traditional red raspberry, and then some golden. We're going to do another 80 feet of 40 of golden and 40 of boysenberry, I think we're going to do, or marionberry. And then so we will sell canned goods, all the excess stuff that, because we have 4 kids, they consume a lot. So we sell all of our excess fruit and vegetables, and that's mostly canned. That's the best way for us. And then the lamb, we like to sell. The goat, like I said, we don't have enough. I'm the only one that will eat goat in my house. The kids like it, but they understand that it's the goats that they have fed, and for whatever reason, they have a more connection with goat than they do with lamb. So they won't eat it, but
Goats are the dogs of the farmyard, I feel like.
I think you're correct. They are loved by most. So we solve. One of the things that happened also coming here was in school, my kids went to school with a friend of mine. He became a friend of mine, and he's a professional beekeeper. So in that connection, and of course everybody loves honey. So, and I did want to know beekeeping, but the guy's super busy. I mean, we're all busy, but he's super busy. So we use a lot of his wax, because beeswax, you can use it in so many ways. But we use that for some health and beauty products like Solve, scrubs, and chapstick. And then we'll use some of soap. We'll use it in the honey. Actually, we're using our honey this year. Finally, I stepped up to the plate and bought my own stuff instead of mooching off of my friend. So, yeah, we do health and beauty things, some farm to table meat, which leads me, so the reason there's lots of reasons, like we made this, but one of the things was we were part of this farm to table deal. And of course, right, they overpromised and under-delivered, but the idea was great. It was something we were thinking, but it was going to be a stopgap. But that stopgap just gave me more determination to do things my way.
You're doing a lot of things. You have a lot of products. You're working as a firefighter. How do you juggle everything and keep all of these kind of plates spinning in the air?
You have to be able to do it and shut down. It's not always going all the time. The animals are something that's all the time. We do like the health and beauty products in bulk. So one day we might say, hey, let's make some soap. Oh, that last time we did it, I think we should do it this way this time. So it's just timing, making sure you use your time wisely. And sometimes you go with the weather. When the sun is out, you're able to use the sun's energy to keep going. A lot of things get to a certain point where I can mentally say, okay, we are at this level. I can relax. I don't have to go, full tilt. There's enough things grabbing my attention that I'm okay with getting to a point where I'm not always finished, and that took a while to get to. In firefighting, and maybe even some other professions, but specifically, we're there to make whatever problem is happening stop and to go in the better direction or resolve it to, whatever point. And it's usually, right, fixing the problem. Sometimes you're unable to fix the problem, when you're dealing with other tragedies. But that mindset that finish, go all the way, 100%, get it done. That mentality is hard to calm that when you come home also.
You are committed to conscious farming practices at your farm or homestead, but I would call it a farm because you're doing so much and you're offering so much to the community. And I think a lot of times, there's this idea of like small scale farmer. If you have to have a day job, it isn't a farm, but it definitely is what you're offering to your community. But for those of you who might be new to the concept of regenerative agriculture, I'd love for you to speak about the systems and the processes that you've implemented so that your farm functions more in harmony with the greater ecosystem.
Well, I must give credit to lots of books, lots of various YouTube. Plus, like lately, it's always been a concept. I know that like fish waste and animal poop, I don't know, like from my dad had always had a beautiful garden. And then we had this other, I would say it was a quarter of an acre of potato and carrots that Mr. Millsap and my dad would plant up. And then, of course, my dad would split it and give it away to the whole neighborhood. Mr. Millsap. So my childhood, we grew up, and I guess that you would call it, the city was encroaching out into the rural spaces in Arkansas. And one of the neighborhood we were in, there was a man named Mr. Millsap, and he used to plant this strawberry patch. And me and my sister would go sit in that strawberry patch and eat those juicy strawberries until a snake came or we had our fill. And those times, throwing dirt clogs, planting fish guts in the garden, and using manure, or just, I don't recall not having those memories. So they played a big part into regenerative farming. Compost tea is probably the easiest and most effective way for me to use my products. I Comfree. I just came into, over the last few years, JDAM and all of these fermented plant juice, FPJ, IMO1, IMO2. And I came across that was a grammar name. His name is Marcos Growing, and his day job is he's an American steel worker. They erect high rises, and I would imagine probably up and down the East Coast. But he is like one of the top information disseminators when it comes to that. So it's evolving. But the way I like to use it is to make manure teas. I like to add the manure directly to the soil. I don't have a manure spreader, but once I get to that point, I'll be able to use it in that way. But compost tea liquid is the best way for me to use it, and also to share with family and friends in their garden, in their backyard or front yard, a community garden, is to get that manure and compost it down and to make ourselves some compost tea.
And is that just as easy for people that aren't familiar, just as easy as dumping the compost into a bucket and like filling it up with water?
I found a lot of different people on YouTube, like they'll do that with chicken manure, fresh chicken manure. It's really, really hot, so you have to dilute it way down. But there is ways to do that. But the best way is to use yourself some, either if you're going to use chicken manure, cow manure, sheep or goat, is if you can compost it, and so you can get a good 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot is the recommended, so that you kill all of the bad pathogens. But I like to use a home brewer's bag, like a brew bag. And you could use a sock, you could use a t-shirt. But what I like to do is that as my base, the manure, and then amendments. So kelp meal, alfalfa meal, cottonseed meal. So a lot of different blood meal, bone meal, bat guano, azomite, glacier rock dust, all kinds of amendments. And then I steep that for me, and I use about 2 pounds of manure and 2.5 pounds of manure and amendments. And then I have that going on a air pump, like a fish tank pump. And that allows you to replicate, it allows those good beneficial microbes to replicate and grow, because I'm also adding in molasses or some of the my friend, the beekeeper, has this older honey that's not really useful for anything than pouring out. That's how I feed the microorganisms. So weekly, I'm adding molasses, a cup or so of molasses or the honey to that water and that tea bag and that oxygen. So it has sugar, water, and oxygen to make calories and to continue to replicate. That's how I use it mostly.
That's awesome. I have not tried making it myself, so that's really helpful for me because I know that you aren't supposed to put chicken manure straight on, or any manure for that matter, because it'll burn your plants. But I've just been like laying it all out and letting it age for, a year or two. But if you want to get right in there.
Manure, yeah, you can go to YouTube. I don't know, I can't recommend who, but there are going to be probably 500 videos how to use fresh chicken manure. You can use goat and sheep pretty easy. You can lay it on top and just use water fresh, and it usually won't burn the plants. It's not too not too hot. They have that multi-chamber stomach. So
my friends down in the other town, they run a goat farm and they make like soaps and all sorts of dairy products. And every year we go and they dump a big old truckload of goat manure into our trailer. And man, do our plants love that?
Guys are then connected. You're already ready to go then.
I know. I've just been putting it straight on because it's like a big old pile, because in Maine, you got to keep all your goats for the most part in a barn all winter. So you're mucking out the barn. It's just like making a mountain.
I don't have a barn yet. I'm working toward that. There was not a barn here. There was a lot of great things here when we moved here, but not a barn. So I've made my own barns out of pallets, T-post, and PVC. So I'm not saying it's the Taj Mahal, but it works. The animals stay high and dry, but I know that whole mucking, my oldest, he's not a farm kid at all. He's going to be gone. Yeah, he thinks highly of the city, which is fine. But yeah, when it comes to, he likes to say how strong he is and how fit he is, but he does not like that mucking.
Mucking is hard work.
It's hard work and it stinks, but it builds strong character for them. So if you can, shovel poop for a day, you can just about do anything. So
that should be on a t-shirt. That is 100% true. Do you have any suggestions for maybe aspiring farmers or homesteaders on ways to get their feet wet and kind of learn before taking the leap into farming full time?
I would say reach one, teach one. We do our urban reach out. We have city folk come down and camp for the weekend and try to expose them directly to it. I know there's lots of groups that do that in and around the United States. You might, of course, you're going to go to Bing, Google, DuckDuckGo, wherever, and start researching, these type of farms, these type of organizations, and you'll be able to find them readily. But I would say you would want to really ask yourself, where are we going to go? How are we going to go? And from there, if you can answer that and you got a desire, you can do it. I would tell anybody that they can do it. Things are getting more complicated as time goes on. With COVID happening, one of the things that kind of blew my mind, but not really, was more people were leaving New York City than were coming to New York City, like the first time in some period. But that urban exodus is happening. So better get on your horse and get going.
Yeah, it definitely has expedited things. I think that the pandemic really made people look good and hard at their lives. And I was living in Seattle. I know that you lived in Seattle as well. And I really loved that city. It was great and close to the outdoors, but it just didn't feel like I was living on my own terms at all and that I had any skills to protect myself if basic needs were not met by the systems of convenience that we rely on. And so I felt so grateful and like honestly like a little bit guilty that I was living in a rural space during the pandemic because I couldn't imagine what that would feel like in a city.
Yeah. So, for my mental note, were you out of Seattle before the pandemic, or still there?
I've been living in Maine for almost 10 years.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. You're what? You guys are called not Mainites or
Mainers.
Mainers. All right, cool.
I was just reading an article, and in the county that I live in Maine, property value has gone up almost 50%. There are no houses on the market. And I know people, you know, I'm turning 40. I know people who are trying to buy their first house who've lived in this community forever. And it's no longer accessible to them. And so that's really hard. You know, there's a lot of good that comes out of this, but also like part of it is that rural communities need to get stronger so that we can start paying better wages in rural areas, or people can make a living wage running their small businesses in rural areas to kind of shift that so that there's more equality.
I would say also getting in those contacts. I know in the Portland area, the Oregon Food Bank and Mudbone Grown, I think they're connected. They are one in Portland. I know in Houston, there's Ivy Leaf Farms. I saw her, but there's so many ways of doing it. I know the community gardens are huge in Oregon. I'm not sure about in Maine, but they're huge here. There's, yeah, I don't, I really, those that are serious about it, they also might have to look like you're saying, 50% in what period of time?
In like a year and a half.
Those numbers are
crazy.
Yeah, so obviously families are going to have to really think about, I don't know if families can get along or whatever, you know, but some do. I see some amazing families, but it might have to be a family thing. I've seen so many people that, like yourself, I've talked to over a period of time for various things, just quick communications. But I've seen so many people making that transition also as families. So not just individuals or couples, but that is sad because that's the reality. It's happening everywhere. I have a friend who just was in Montana and another really close friend whose parents are in Montana. There's like 900 realtors or 1,200 realtors in one home for sale. So, I mean, I don't know if those are properties are up 50% in a year and a half, but I bet you they're not far behind.
I bet you're right. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think a lot of the moves right now, or at least it feels like in my community, are maybe even second home purchases.
You guys are close enough to some wealth. People who have wealth, they can obviously do a second home. So, absolutely.
Building community is often really a struggle for people who move into maybe a more small, insular place. And I wondered if you had any suggestions for new arrivals on way to make inroads and find friends in small towns.
I don't know. My friends came from my kids' school, really, and then just neighbor. I moved into a community. I couldn't be isolated if I wanted to. I'm not saying people are nosy. Everybody wants to help or at least know that you're okay, and the same, they want that in return. So my experience is unique in that way, but I would say generally, a good way is to be nice, give respect, and you should give respect. Not everybody is going to like you. So you just have to take people for who they are and just be nice. You're going to run into mean people. Sometimes the term is jerk. You're going to run into jerks. That's just life. But there's a lot of good people coming from a city or even a small town. I would say, man, the city can be more friendly than here because you think about it. In your community, people live in these small communities because they don't want to be bothered. So it's not that everybody is friendly or whatever, but you have to take that into consideration too. That was being a social person. That was a transition, I would say. You're a people person, I can tell. The stories you're able to get from people, if you are able to listen, if you're able to ask the right questions, man, people's life experience are amazing. And I would just say some of the experiences I've had across the world are no less wowing than some of the conversations I've had with my neighbors.
Oh, that's beautiful. And it's so true. I think that there's like kind of this discounting of the intelligence of like learning by doing. And just like all of my neighbors who've lived here for generations have such an integral understanding of the rhythms of the seasons and how to do things that I have no clue how to do. And they're so willing to share that knowledge. And you just have to be receptive and welcoming to it.
Totally agree.
Living connected to the land, I was wondering if you've noticed any changes to weather patterns and the climate in recent years.
I would say this year, the most interesting, you have these patterns. I don't know exactly when, but we did break some records, which obviously it must have come close to these numbers in the past. But recent thinking, I remember some dry summers, but we had the longest stretches without rain. And I would talk to my dad in Arkansas, and he'd be complaining about the showers and the rain, and looking at photos when Melissa got a free bike from our neighbor that doesn't ride anymore. The grass was so green. And then talking with him and taking a photo of the kids and just seeing the brown. It has rained like 4 or 6 days since we broke that record. And I thank God for that. But that was a little, I wouldn't say, not necessarily say scary, but it was something to take note of. And I know we in Oregon and Washington, when you're in Seattle, complained about the rain, but rain is a good thing.
Did you guys have the extreme heat?
Yeah, we did that. We had that, and we lost. Oh man, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that because if I should have, we lost a bunch of meat chickens. None of the turkeys died in that heat wave, but the meat chickens did. We had fans. Oh man, yeah, that was crazy. I should have moved them underneath trees, but that's part of the issue when you live rural. You have to protect your livestock. We have, apex predators here. We've got mountain lions, cougars, alleged wolves sighting, coyotes, falcons, hawks, eagles, little marmots. We have a lot of things that will kill your livestock. So I will be prepared next year. The good Lord says the same. But yeah, we had 2 extreme heat waves, not to mention the 70-something plus days of no rain, which is foreign in Oregon.
That's such a hard thing that farmers have to contend with now, just like having such extreme temperature shifts.
We have friends that do chickens a lot. They sell some a good amount every week, but I haven't communicated with them. But I would say that I'm going to start earlier, and building that base. Yeah, getting started earlier would be advantageous to avoid that type of issue. But yeah, that was a lesson learned.
I just wanted to give an enormous thank you to all of you listeners who have made contributions toward the production of this podcast. Every season, I spend about 100 hours preparing, writing, editing, interviewing, and distributing the podcast. And I have hard costs for my editor and for those hosting fees. And it really means so much to me that you find enough meaning and value in this podcast to pledge your support and to keep it going. And if you haven't had a chance to contribute, we've made it really easy for you. Just click the support button on the top of Urban Exodus website and pledge any amount that you like. Thank you again. I really couldn't continue to do this work without you. Obviously, your job as a firefighter is very involved and probably at times can be traumatic. And farming is really tough and it's very taxing on your body. Do you have a specific space or place that you go to kind of restore you that helps you kind of reinvigorate?
Oh, yeah, in my head. No, I don't know. Probably just here on the farm, walking around, moving around, looking, planning, and then around the community, hiking. There's lots of, I would say, so hiking would probably be and then the foam roller. Those are two really important tools to me.
I'm nodding my head yes, because hiking is like my therapy, hiking and planting.
Oh, yeah, gardening. Well, yeah, that goes all the time. Yeah, I love planting. I did a new flower box down for the mail carrier, because the mail carrier gets to see all this natural beauty, but maybe you might take it for granted. I don't know that. But I thought flowers would brighten the day of the post carrier, but also to deter, any punk kids that might want to baseball bat the mailbox. So I used some T-posts, and then I put a bunch of flowers and one of the extra beer hops I had for decoration. So yeah, I love planting too.
Oh, that's such a good idea to deter mailbox smashers.
I never did that. We did a lot of, stupid stuff as teenagers, but I saw mailboxes be smashed. I've never seen any smashed out here, but I have a phobia of mailbox smashing. So
we lived at the end of a long driveway in Northern California, and our mailbox has been smashed so many times, but my mom just keeps picking it up, taking it to the garage, painting it a different color, and then putting it back up. Oh, that's so funny. The last 2 years have been extremely difficult on so many levels. What has this time taught you, and how are you carrying that into your work and intentions for the future?
Yeah, I would say that things are tough. Life is hard. Just being more involved in home with the kids and Melissa. But the community is also suffering. I mean, like you mentioned, so you've noticed some things in society. Well, in our community, we've seen a lot of violence, especially against Black men. So that's really a lot of my focus has been there to try and encourage, from what little sphere I have of what is available for them to, make a difference in their community and start a good career, even if it's not something they do for 25 years, even if they only do it for 10 years, I just really want them to consider that. There's a group I was working with that is working with many other companies and other government organizations in the Portland metro area. Word is Bond is the group, and the founder is Lakiana Drury. And I saw what he was doing and the good works. So I got involved in that way. I would say the last 2 years is that people still need to help each other. People still need community. And your community isn't necessarily where you geographically live, but sometimes your community, obviously nowadays, could be on the internet or a platform, a group. But that scene, because it could have easily, when I was young, it could have been me. But yeah, showing and giving attention, being intentional with your time, because, your time is very important and you don't have a lot of it. So sharing your time intentionally and for the right reason, is why I like to stay involved with that part of the community. Just a shared experience, and you see what's going on in America, for Black men. So you have to be intentional and have a plan. You just don't go into it blind. So yeah, that's what I've been up to for 2 years, just trying to make those connections and those inroads. And yeah, we made inroads over the last 2 years working, myself and some other coworkers spending our time off duty to make these connections. We got near 20 young men CPR first aid certified. We got to get, let me shout out the old church in downtown Portland, Southwest Portland, the old church, staff, and crew. Amazing. Because we were in COVID at this time, and some things that I missed. We had, I thought, a venue open, and it wasn't. That door was shut, and then the clock was ticking. I was going to have 25 people show up to get CPR first aid certified, these young Black men. So, of course, I went to different people I might know. I was like, hey, do you know anything? Do you know that can host this, can host this? And then my friend in Georgia on the IG, Fetty Mom, she was talking, and then her mutual friend, our mutual friend, the old church hosted us. We did that, part one, and we wrote it down. See, writing it down makes those connections. You're able to make thinking about it and saying it are all powerful things, but writing it down. And then so we set that plan into action. We got the approval we needed beforehand from our fire chief, and then the other firefighters that volunteered on their days off and their time came together, and we got part one done at the old church. That was amazing. And I'll send you some of those clips. Then we were able to get part two done, which was hands-on experience with the fire engine, the hose, ladders, helmets, turnouts, all that type of stuff. So, yeah, over the past year, we had a Zoom meeting the year before that because of COVID. So, yeah, like everyone, making good use of time and technology to try and make an impact and a change.
That's amazing. And I think when you said thinking, saying it, and then writing it down, those are the first steps. I think that people can feel really paralyzed right now by all of the problems that we're facing as a society, just as a collective society, all the problems. It can feel like, how can I even make a difference? But thinking, saying it, writing it down.
And, we all have done it. I still do it probably. You come up with this great idea and you don't have a plan. Spin your wheels.
Well, and also I bet that you dedicating that part of yourself to that work, it is healing in the act of service.
For sure. And then people did it for me. So this is just our version of what they were doing. Some people were doing in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, 2000s. We're just adapting and doing our part. There was, when I was an explorer, it was in a community, obviously most of Oregon, anywhere, even in the major city, it's majority white, but that area more so. But there was a captain there who took an interest in all of us, but specifically me. He told me about, there's this man named Erwin Warren, and he's a firefighter, and he's looking for firefighters, women and minorities. You should call him. As a matter of fact, I'll call him right now. He was intentional, and he was just one of many great people who helped me along the way. But that experience stuck out because no one else did that. Everyone had the opportunity to do that, but he was one who acted.
It just gave me goosebumps when you said he was intentional. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. Then later on, I saw him on a fire when I got to working at a neighboring jurisdiction. And then later on at a hazmat, when I was on the hazmat team, he became a battalion chief for another district that we, mutual aid is the term, mutual aided. And it was always good to see his face because he was happy. I'm proud. You could tell.
That's amazing. Well, I have taken up so much of your time, but I've just had such a pleasure speaking with you. I feel like I've been writing notes, which I don't usually do when I have conversations with people. But I guess to close it, Let's just look to the future. You're in your 80s. Imagine yourself sitting on your front porch. What do you see, and what legacy do you want to leave behind for your family and for future generations, not just your family, but the greater society?
Probably some notes. I see kids, grandkids. I see plants. Maybe at this time, maybe my kids will have like a fuel cell powered tractor. I mean, it's hard to envision like the physical things outside of maybe I'll have my fourth book done by then because I haven't published my first one. So I'll have my fourth book by then. Melissa will probably be asking me, do I want potatoes and eggs? You said you wanted potatoes and eggs. Why aren't you eating them? That conversation will be happening in the background. I see lots of plants, family, and friends around and barbecuing like usual. That's what I see. For the greater world, yeah, I see the transition happening even while lots of bad things are happening. There are lots of positive things happening that we could go into detail more, at another time. But I think the good is headed in the right direction. And I just think about like how we linked, right? And I would say you're doing really good things. And probably, well, there's no probably, you're changing not only Maine, but you're changing America and the world with what you're doing. There's also so many other good people. And the one thing that has allowed it to expedite, because if there's a lot of good people and a lot of good things happening in your community, but what can you do in your community? We know you can do lots. But when you're connected with people in Vermont, in Nebraska, and in Oregon, and in Arizona, in Texas, in Alabama, you're connecting with all these people, and so your power to do good and to influence is becoming exponential. So that's what I see, also on the porch. That's how the revolution is televised. Everyone will see it.
It's been such a pleasure to speak with you, David. How can people follow your journey, support your efforts, find Crosseyed Cricket Farms products if they're in the Oregon area?
Yeah, so the website is crosseyedcricketfarms.com, and you'll find the soaps, salves, scrubs, and those type of things. We are booked out on eggs. We only have, we're a small farm. So we have a nice chicken coop, but all of our eggs get sold here locally or in the community where I spend my other time. So eggs were tapped out, but you can always reach us if you're seriously considering trying to find farm fresh poultry. We're always trying to build that market. But you can mostly find us on the website. You can find us also on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
I'll include links to all of those on your blog post.
Every year we've made our reach out, to urban folk, and their children, try and make that connection to the land. We are just working on building our campsite here on the farm for longer and better use. We will probably try and start a GoFundMe, but that's the direction we're headed. We want to have a campsite set up so that we can host groups throughout the year. But yeah, that's a project we're working on, but I hope to be able to share more with you later on as we make that progress. But yeah, it has been going on for 5 years or 6 years, and you can find that stuff on those social media links.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with David Barron. I am truly inspired by the fact that all of his work is in direct benefit of his community, whether it be putting out fires, providing nourishment, volunteering with youth, or hosting country-curious urbanites on his farm. You can tell through his words and his actions how much he really cares about others, and his optimism about making this world a better place. I know how easily one can feel overwhelmed by all of the problems that we are facing. And while it's necessary to call out our society's wrongs, David's perspective is so refreshing and is a great reminder of all the things we can do ourselves to make an impact. No matter how big or small, we shouldn't discount the actions we can take to make our families, loved ones, and communities stronger. You can see photos from David's farm and links to Crosseyed Cricket Farm's website, social accounts, and more information about Word is Bond by visiting the blog at urbanexodus.com. Hi friends, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Urban Exodus podcast. Urban Exodus is a labor of love and is only made possible by listener support. I do this work because the people I meet through this project give me energy and hope for the future. My mission is to promote the work of people manifesting good in the world. We are living in a time where there's an overwhelming feeling of dread, and I want this project to encourage people to be proactive and work towards finding creative solutions for both their individual happiness and our collective experience. You can support this work by clicking the support button at the top of urbanexodus.com, by buying an ad spot in an upcoming episode, by shopping our online store, or taking an in-person or online course through our workshops at How Hill Farm. We are also slowly getting our Patreon page together, and we'll be adding bonus features and other content there, so check out patreon.com/urbanexodus to learn more. Another way to support is by giving us a 5-star rating on iTunes and recommending Urban Exodus to your friends. Thank you again for helping me continue to do this work. I couldn't do it without all of you. You can find Urban Exodus on Instagram and Facebook at The Urban Exodus. To read more in-depth features on folks who ditched the city and went country, visit urbanexodus.com. Until next time, I'm Alyssa Hessler, and this is The Urban Exodus.